The metallic knock on Benjamin's apartment door came at exactly to 47 a.m. Living on Frontier Station, Kepler 442, he'd grown accustomed to odd hours miners worked in shifts that ignored Earth's ancient circadian rhythms. But this sound was different, hesitant, almost musical. When he opened the door, Benjamin found himself staring down at what could only be described as a child. Though calling her human would be generous, she stood perhaps 4 feet tall, her skin shimmering with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed faintly blue and violet. Large, dark eyes 3 times the size of human ones blinked up at him with unmistakable hunger. Her frame was painfully thin. "Please," she whispered in surprisingly clear standard. "Food." Benjamin's practical mind catalogued the impossibility before him. Kepler 442 was a human colony station. Alien species rarely ventured this far into Terran space, and when they did, it certainly wasn't to send children begging door to door. Every regulation he'd learned in his 5 years as a station engineer screamed at him to report this immediately. Instead, he stepped aside. "Comin'." The girl, he estimated her at perhaps 7 or 8 in human years, moved with fluid grace, her bare feet making no sound on the metal floor. She wore what appeared to be a tattered environmental suit, several sizes too large, held together with improvised patches. "I'm Benjamin," he said, moving to his small kitchenette. "What's your name?" "Elsie," she replied, the name clearly chosen from human phonetics rather than whatever her native language offered. "Mother said humans, kind, said you help." Benjamin's hands moved automatically, pulling out the remnants of his dinner rice, vegetables, some protein paste. Nothing fancy, but he heated it quickly, adding extra portions. The station's rations were generous enough for sharing. When he placed the bowl before her, Elsie's eyes widened. She looked up at him, those enormous eyes shimmering with something that transcended species gratitude. Then she ate with desperate efficiency, though never sloppily. Someone had taught her manners, even in starvation. "Where's your mother?" Benjamin asked gently. Elsie's luminescence dimmed. "Hiding, ship broken. Hunters coming." She pointed vaguely toward the station's lower levels, the abandoned sectors where refugees sometimes hid from authorities or worse. Benjamin felt his jaw tighten. Hunters. He knew the type. The galaxy was full of species who viewed others as commodities. Humans had ended that practice within their own space, but beyond Terran borders, the darkness remained. "Heat," he said. "Then we'll figure this out." She finished 2 more bowls before her bioluminescence brightened to a healthy glow. Benjamin packed additional food into a container, enough for several days, and was reaching for his jacket when Elsie suddenly stood. "I bring Mother," she announced. "She must thank you." "Is our way." "That's not neck." But Elsie was already at the door, moving with surprising speed. She paused only to offer him a small bow before disappearing into the corridor. Benjamin stood in his apartment, the silence suddenly oppressive. He should contact station security. Protocol existed for reasons, yet something in Elsie's eyes, that universal language of a desperate child, had bypassed every logical circuit in his engineer's brain. 20 minutes later, the knock came again. This time, when Benjamin opened the door, he understood immediately why someone might hunt these beings. The woman who stood before him was breathtaking in a way that transcended conventional beauty. She possessed Elsie's same bioluminescent skin, but where the child glowed with soft pastels, her mother radiated deep purples and blues that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of distant stars. She stood nearly 6 feet tall, her form elegant and alien, yet somehow familiar. Her eyes held galaxies. "I am Lyra," she said. Her voice, like music played on instruments humanity had yet to invent. "You fed my daughter." Beside her, Elsie beamed with pride. "Anyone would have," Benjamin managed, very aware of how small his apartment suddenly felt. "No," Lyra said firmly. She stepped inside, and Benjamin caught the scent of something like cinnamon and ozone. "We have knocked on 47 doors across this station. 47 times we were turned away, threatened, once nearly captured." Her luminescence flickered with remembered fear. "Only you opened your door. Only you asked no questions before offering help." She reached into the folds of her clothing and produced a small crystal that glowed with internal light. "My people, the Stellara, were traders once, poets, artists." Then the Vorkai decided our bioluminescent organs were valuable, worth more than our lives. Benjamin felt rage building in his chest, a peculiarly human emotion that had driven his species to end slavery, to fight oppression, to stand against injustice even when it was inconvenient. Our ship was damaged fleeing them, Lyra continued. We've been hiding here, hoping to repair it, to reach the Terran diplomatic sector where we might claim asylum. She pressed the crystal into his hand. This is a Stellara memory stone. It contains our history, our culture. If we don't survive, at least someone will remember we existed. You'll survive, Benjamin said, surprised by the conviction in his own voice. He looked at Elsie, then back to Lyra. I'm an engineer. I can help with your ship, and I have friends, people who won't ask inconvenient questions. Lyra's eyes widened. Why would you risk this? Benjamin thought about that for a moment, about Earth's bloody history, about how humanity had clawed its way from tribalism to the stars by learning eventually that compassion wasn't weakness, that the measure of a civilization wasn't its weapons or wealth, but how it treated those who had neither. Because someone once told me, he said quietly, that the most human thing we can do is help someone who can't help themselves, even if it's inconvenient, even if it's dangerous. He looked down at Elsie, who had wrapped her small arms around her mother's leg. Especially then, Lyra's bioluminescence brightened until the small apartment glowed like a nebula. When she smiled, Benjamin understood why poets across the galaxy had spent millennia trying to capture beauty in words and always falling short. Then we accept, Benjamin of Earth, she said, and in accepting, you have earned something rare, the eternal friendship of the Stellara. We do not forget kindness. As Benjamin began making plans, calculating which friends he could trust, which dock bays were unwatched at this hour, how to acquire ship parts without raising suspicion, he caught Elsie watching him. With those enormous eyes, she smiled, and in that smile, he saw the future, not just for one child and her mother, but for what humanity could become, what it was becoming, a species that opened doors instead of closing them, that asked, how can I help? Before, what will it cost me? Outside, the station's artificial night continued, but inside Benjamin's small apartment, 3 people from 2 different worlds began planning a rescue that would, in its own small way, change the galaxy. Because that's what humans did. They helped.